faith is not the only profound positive emotion. There are 11 of them. But faith is one easy to talk about it. So I'm using as an example. So with that influence of faith, compassion is easy to develop. Care is easy to develop. Anger is difficult to pop up. Hatred is almost very far away. Obsession is unwilling to entertain. Jealousy, for the time being, will be happy to ignore. And all of those, a positive emotion does that. Any action we have taken by that influence will be positive unless it is negative by nature. No, most likely one will not engage killing while you are having a profound faith, or the influence of the profound faith is continuing with you. One won't engage in a killing or lying or stealing or sexual misconduct. But those influences can fade away, negative influence can come up, and then we can engage all these negative deeds. And while the negative deeds are there, it is very difficult to develop positive emotions. Like faith, you're not going to develop right at the moment. It's very, very hard. When the individual is very angry, really mad, you're mad like hell, and in the middle of that, you talk about faith, you're not going to be entertaining at all. Or antidote of anger, patience, you're not going to entertain. Anybody try to remind you patience at that moment, probably better ready to turn your cheek right and left, because otherwise you're going to have a little prick on your cheek. So that is how the emotions does. So at this point, what we need to do is we need to recognize the positive emotions and the negative emotions. Negative emotions are a little easy, I mentioned the other day too, like hatred, anger, obsession, are easy to remember. The names. Recognition may be little difficult. What really anger is, what really hatred is, what really obsession is. Obsession is. Anger is not hatred. We all know. But constantly, continuously angry, irritated by one point, subject, one person, one subject, one country, one group, one whatever, constantly, that develops, becomes hatred. As we all know very well, for the last 10 years, we learned tremendously about the terrorists. We learned tremendously about how to hate fear and hate together about the terrorist. And we developed hatred. Most of us don't like when you talk about the word terrorist or anybody who identify as a terrorist. It is almost out of a subject of compassion, as though it's out of living beings or something. We go to that extent, and that is how constant, persistent, continual anger brought to hatred. Or we can call it extremist Muslim group or something. So everybody will be afraid of it. Most of us, anyway. Most of us in fear. Most of us hesitate. Most of us don't want to deal with it. Would like to avoid. Although politicians will say, hey, it is only the one or two individual extremists, not all this and that. But not all Muslims and this and that. They talk about it. But you can see how you feel yourself. So this is how our mind is getting influenced by hatred. This is how our mind entertains fear. And the fear is there, for sure. Because we have a tremendous love and affection for ourselves. Many people will deny. However, deep inside our mind, we have a tremendous, not only a love and affection, but a tremendous selfishness and a self-grasping. And so we have that. And that's why anything threatening to that will be threatening my ego, will be threatening me. So that's why the fear comes in. Fear makes us almost like porcupine situation, ready to shoot any arrows that you can shoot out of your body to protect yourself. And that is how fear changes individual. Fear changes our love into our very fear changes our love into a selfishness. Not only self-protecting, but almost like a self-grasping, selfishness. Both combine them together. Grasping self, grasping ego, protecting me, self-superiority, we are holding it. That because of the fear to threat self. And that's why ready to attack anyone before you get attacked. Unfortunately, I have to recall the George Bush's words because they're popping up on my head. I get you before you get me. That's it. I better get you before you get me. or he used it politically. I bring you to justice, or I'll bring justice to you. So these are the interesting words they use it. But actually, those are the thoughts that push it. So what are we supposed to do? Recognize that thought. Acknowledge that thought is not nice. Politically, it may be correct, but spiritually, it's not correct. It is wrong. It is wrong. It is a narrow, selfish, self-interest thoughts. Ignoring everybody else except yourself. I'm not talking about it except one nation like America. I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about it, every human being being ignored except one individual. Just interests. And this is applicable for all different matters. What I meant is small as an individual or family or nation or anything. In other words, these are the contribution to me and my. Me and my is our deepest sources of narrow, self-interested, selfish, negative emotions, which brings anger, hatred as protection, obsession as way to progress, jealousy as disturbing, ignorance as the foundation of exist of these negative emotions. So recognizing that, rejecting that, perceiving or accepting faith, compassion, and love will be the right thing to do. For example, if you have a faith, then you have a basis to develop. If you don't have a faith, you don't have a base to develop. Many people may think, what the heck he's talking about? This is Tibetan Buddhism. You don't talk about faith in Tibetan Buddhism. That's not true. Faith is very fundamental thing. Very fundamental. Earlier, Buddha himself had said, Buddha gave faith as an example like a mother who gave birth to a child, mother who nurtures, brought up, matured child. That is faith. Buddha father goes on say, Teba mebe minamla kaju kaya migid sabe me sigbala new migi chishenos. When there is no faith, there will be no positive result. Like if you have burned seed of crops that you're going to grow, whether it's wheat or barley or corn, the corns or whatever. If you burn the seed, there will, no matter whatever you provide, the water, the moisture, the manure, the heat, the ground, whatever you do, nothing will grow because the seed has been burnt. So when there's no faith, there will be no spiritual result. So it is very important. And I'm glad I picked it up, the faith as subject. Faith is like providing rings for those enlightened beings. Let's call it Tibetan Buddhism, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Generally speaking, all enlightened beings, including God and all that. So the faith of the individual provide ring. The compassion and the care of those enlightened beings are like a hook. And they're there swing the hook all the time to help us to hook. But if we don't provide the ring, and if we don't provide a ring, you only have the ball-headed. And if you're ball-headed, the hooks may even cut it. So you never know. So that's not right. So the faith is like a hook. And then the compassion and the care hooks in there, they can pull it. And they're easier to pull, easier to help. But we must provide the ring. That is the faith.
May all beings have happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred.
Thank you.